Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, the Rumpled One, coming to you on Monday, July the 11th, the year's 2022. Let's talk trading. Nothing to fear with Walmal. These videos are for educational purposes only. Your results may differ from mine. It's kind of interesting. I read about three different articles this weekend. Only one had to do with trading, and it was specifically talking about FOMO. And the other two were basically talking about life in general when there's nothing to fear. Um, so fear usually has to do with the entry. You get your setup, you see it, and for some strange reason, you're afraid to pull the trigger. And we've kind of been over this before because there really is nothing to fear because the worst possible outcome under normal circumstances. And that's wherever you place your stop loss. And every now and then things can happen and you can get a huge drop in the blink of an eye. And because of the way most Forex brokers honor orders, you could wind up actually losing more than your stop loss. But that's, maybe a once in a blue moon occasion, possibly maybe even once a day. But chances are, um, you're not going to get or be in that situation. Normally, you're going to take a trade at a horizontal line and say, okay, I'm willing to lose X pips or X dollars. And if that stop is not hit, then maybe the market smiles upon you, gives you the chance to take a couple of pips, and then you're out of the trade. So, Walmal, what's your experience been overcoming fear if you ever had it in the first place?
Yeah, we all have fear. Anyone says that they don't fear anything, I think they're probably a liar. They're afraid that their fear is telling the truth. but but in any case, it's funny that you said that you read about this idea of fear, in other articles other than trading, and it's so true. You have fear in just about everything that you do, and it just, well, not everything you do, but a lot of things that you do. My sister bought me a new one of those iWatches, I like to call them a Dick Tracy phone, you're talking to your watch just like Dick Tracy did back in the 1960s, but one of the things that it does is it actually goes and monitors my heartbeat, my heart rate, my blood pressure, and all these wonderful things. But one of the things I was kind of noticing is that there's a really bad highway by us. And I noticed that whenever I got on that highway, my heart rate went up. Nothing going on around me, nobody even around me or whatever, but it's just like there's wrecks on that highway all of the time. And my blood pressure just went up naturally just by getting on it. It was just an element of fear. And where I had to go and say, well, where does that fear come from? Is it just fear because of whatever, or is there fear based on, something that is going to happen? And I'd say no, because I don't know if anything's going to happen. I think the fear really comes from this whole idea of, of just the uncertainty. And that's what brings out the fear. And that's where you can get yourself into trouble. Because if you don't have a plan in place, you don't have the way to go and deal with that fear. You're going to have fear. There's, it's sort of like, I have a friend of mine, and he was in the military, and he did all types of spec ops, and I asked him one time, well, do you ever fear with some of the things that you have to do? And what he said to me was that, well, the day that I stop having fear is the day that I go and hang it up and go do something else, because that's when I'm going to get myself into trouble. And I think there's an element of truth to that. There's a little bit of fear that's a healthy fear, not a fear that paralyzes you, but a healthy fear, and it keeps your head clear, keeps you in the game, and allows you to go and do what you need to do. And there always is an uncertainty in the trading market. It just happens. If you go and look at your charts, you look at the 1 minute chart from what was 8:32 Eastern time, and if you happen to have a tick chart, if you happen to be one of those blessed people that have that, you'll see that the market dropped 26 pips in one tick. just bam, gone. And even if you would have had stop losses in place, you know what? It would have, they wouldn't have been honored because the market moved that far, and these brokers, they wouldn't have honored that, and just said that's just the market. Now here's the question: do you fear that happening? Well, yeah, you need to go and have a healthy fear that could happen, and you need to have a plan in place that goes in and allows you to go and be able to withstand that. And how do you withstand something like that? And I think the biggest way you withstand something like that is you don't put yourself in a position where you're trading so heavy that even if it does drop something that big, it doesn't go and wipe your account out. It doesn't go and wipe you out so that you can't trade tomorrow. And when you do that, yeah, it stinks. There's no question about it. But at the same time, you shouldn't fear it from happening because you have a plan in place. And that's the biggest thing. I think, the problem with the biggest issue with fear is not the fear itself. It's what do we do when the uncertain thing happens, when the catastrophic thing happens. Do we have something in place to go and protect ourselves so that we don't get, into a situation where we can't recover from it?
Yeah, well, one of the articles that I was reading, they said that you already know the answer, what you should do in some of these life circumstances. Like, for example, if you have a a new job offer, it's like, or you're deciding whether or not to move to a different location. It's like you already know the answer.
Right.
And the thing that keeps you from saying yes when that's is the uncertainty.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's that uncertainty, and here's, I think, where I think I've seen fear really cripple a lot of traders, over my years of doing this. And what happens is they know it can happen. They have a plan for it, what to do if it does happen. And then it does happen, or you even have little things that happen against you. And then what happens is when the big thing happens, you don't go and you don't have the discipline to actually immediately go and implement what you are supposed to do. When these big things happen, you have to go and immediately deal with it. A perfect example of that is that some of the traders out there know this because I've talked to them personally, either on the phone or through email or something. But my degree is actually in nuclear engineering. And I worked in a nuclear power plant, not for very long, but for a little bit. And we had all these plans and all these things that were, put in place in case of God forbid, a catastrophic event was to occur. And one of the things that happened was they had this plan that was there, in the books that was there. And one of the things that we did was the first 2-3 things, whatever it was, were in bold capital letters, big as a page, as to step 1, step 2, step 3. And what that meant, because it was bold and big as a page, that meant those were things that had to be memorized, and not only have to be memorized, but also muscle memory had to take place. In other words, you just did it. You didn't even think about it. You just knew what to do, and you implemented it, and you did it. Because if you didn't do those things, you were going to make the situation go from bad to worse. And then, steps 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to who knows how many steps. Those were things that then started to get implemented, but you had the book in front of you to help you, guide you through that. And now, admittedly, in that type of situation, you'd have 2, 3, 4 people who did steps 1, 2, and 3, and that was their job. And then you had another 2, 3 people who were there who were at that point breaking the books out. What do we do here? So they can start looking at, action plans for steps 4, 5, and 6. Well, we don't have that luxury in trading. So what do we need to do? We need to have a plan. We need to have it memorized. And we need to go and have it not just memorized, but also have it into our muscle memory. So God forbid things like that happen, we can just immediately pull the trigger and do what we got to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think, you said something in the very beginning that I just thought of. You said most of your comes when you first go and get into the trade. we're fearful to get into the trade. But, sometimes that fear, can extenuate all the way into while you're in the trade. And it's like, okay, I'm up 2, 3, 4 pips. I should get out here. And maybe with your plan, that's the right place to get out. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But sometimes you're afraid to go and not make as much as you should make, or you're afraid to get, if it starts going against you and it's just moving incrementally against you, you're afraid to go and get out and take that small loss. Every single trader out there has got their own fears that they need to go and deal with, and they have to figure out what those things are and then put that plan together. Without, it's sort of like, I used to say that you used to say this all the time. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And it's so true, because that's what happens.
Yeah, that's a yeah. Failing to plan is planning to fail.
Yeah,
In,
and it could get you into so much trouble. And it's like, it's the type of thing where, if you don't go and do it, you're going to be in trouble. And, here's the problem, because it's a two-step process. And I think this is where some people get into trouble, and people say, well, it didn't work. My plan didn't work. And the reality is, did you write a plan? And did you really go and spend the time to study and to figure out exactly what you're going to do as this particular scenario takes place? And a lot of times what people do is they make a plan, but they're unrealistic in their plan, or they think that they're better than they are, and so what happens is they have a plan that's not really a good plan. They need to sit down and really examine their plan, because again, I'm going to hit on the psychology again. And I know people don't like hearing this because that's just mumbo jumbo stuff. But the problem is, when you're in a fight, because this is what this is. This is a street brawl, okay? And when you're in a fight, you need to be able to go and just immediately go and react and do what you got to go and do. And you have to be honest with yourself. If you're the type of guy that that can do certain things, and you can do it, and you've proven that you can do it, then that's what you do. If you're the type of guy that you can't do certain things, okay, and you've proven that you can't do it, make a different plan. Find a different way. Come up with a different way to go and mitigate what could go wrong against yourself.
and I think that's part of people's problem with that is they think of so many things that no matter what they do or how many uh, reasons there are to take the trade, they'd only need one not to, or vice versa.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what gets people into trouble. And a lot of times and people go both ways on that. I'd say, and so you can wind up having people just willy-nilly taking 1.5 billion trades, because every time a fly flies in a different direction, that's the reason to take a trade. And then you get other people that they wind up having that fear go the other direction, and what happens is that they can't take any trades. And so what happens is they take a trade, they finally go and take a trade, and let's say it just doesn't work out, and they take a loss, and then they're afraid for the rest of the day to go and take any other trades. And every other one of those trades would have been profitable, good trades. And that's that's the biggest thing. Now, I will talk personally about myself. I found myself doing that sometimes, and what I found, the biggest reason why was because I was overextending myself in terms of how much I was willing to lose on any particular trade. And so what happened was, it's sort of like, well, if I take a trade and I lose here, maybe I'll take one more trade today, and that's it. And so that created a situation where a lot of times I just didn't take trades and I missed out on the good ones. And finally, what I recognized was, okay, if I go and I reduce the amount that I'm actually risking on a particular trade, and the way I did that was, one, get a bigger account size, and two, lowering the amount I was actually, my lot size, and by doing those two things, I was then able to go